you don't need blockchains if you just want centralized black box AI solutions. And the core assumption there is that you have to trust the company that's building the model. And you trust them with a few things. You trust them with aligning the models correctly. You trust them that they have ethics and safety filters. You trust them that they use the right data. You trust them that they actually serve you the model that you're expecting. And so there's a lot of trust assumptions. But if you want a different type of trust assumption where you're like, okay, I don't care about who's on the network, I just want to be able to trust by verification, then you need the blockchain environment. It, again, creates transparency because you can see where did the data come from, who labeled the data, where the censorship decisions that were being made, like what version of the model am I getting, what GPUs are being used, is the model performing in a specific way? If it's misperforming, can I slash the economics of it? Can I create a different incentive mechanism? So all of these things exist to put AI into a container where it's can't cheat, or you can see negative traits happen very early and then modify the models if necessary. What Zero-G does, it's effectively creating the infrastructure to make AI safe, transparent, and a public good.
Welcome, Michael. It is absolute pleasure to sit down with you today for Dealflow Founders Stories, a podcast that MH Ventures is leading the charge on to try to rip the Band-Aid off some of the BS, I guess you could say, and the technical jargon that is associated with so many crypto projects out there. So the idea behind today is to really uncover your story and for people to get inspired by what you are building there at Zero Gravity Labs. So hopefully by the end of this podcast, people are going to be walking away with a little bit of alpha, a little bit of understanding around the crypto industry and the AI industry, which you guys are leading the charge of, and not be bogged down too much in the heavy alpha of the technical behind the scenes, because I'm a true believer that most people don't really care what's going on behind the scenes, just as long as it works and it's providing them some value. So I know that Zero Gravity is one of the most hyped projects at the moment. So it's an absolute pleasure to talk with you today.
Yeah, great to be on. Thanks for having me. It should be a fun conversation.
It all to do with the Web3 environment, I don't think. Anyway, so let's kick it off with, I want you to please describe Zero Gravity in 3 emojis.
Besides the rocket emoji, right?
Well, you can do that one. No worries with doing that one. 2 more. All right, we'll take the rocket.
No, I'd take kind of an intelligence emoji, so like maybe a light bulb, then
like
a network emoji, and then a like trust type of emoji, like a safety emoji. So
cool.
I think those would be the 3.
Sounds good, and we'll leave the rocket for the speculators on the side. All right, on to the next one. You have the option between 2 superpowers. What are you going to choose? Would you rather read minds or control time?
Control time. Definitely much more fun. I feel like I kind of get an intuitive sense of minds anyways these days.
You're one of those guys that got that good gut feeling on a lot of things. I envy that a lot. All right, how about this one? You are hosting a party and you get to invite either AI to be the DJ or a robot to be the bartender. Who are you choosing?
I think today in this day and age it would be a robot as a bartender, because just way more fun to play around.
Absolutely.
And see what happens.
Oh, yeah. I wonder whether, I don't know what sort of drinks might be coming out of that bar, but anyway, that'll be pretty cool.
Exactly. Oil spilled slush.
All right. I have done a little bit of stalking, I guess. Maybe we can call it research to keep it a bit more PC around your background here. And I know that you, was it your grandmother was in Germany and she was notorious for having a fabulous garden. What is the best food that your grandmother grew for you in the garden?
Oh, there were so many, but a lot of my memories around her just going outside, taking some mint leaves and making tea. So I think that's always a fun memory. So definitely mint leaves, and then really enjoyed all the fruits. So just like forage around in the garden and just keep picking fruits and stay there for like hours.
That's so cool. I totally rate the mint tea because when I was in Morocco, it was the first time that I had like proper mint leaves in just hot water, and it is so different from the tea bag version. So envy that you grew up
So
on that.
much
That
better.
was like the best. Very much so. All right, let's wrap it up with the last question. So, which continent are you most bullish on? North Africa, North America, South America, Africa, Australia, Asia, Europe, or Antarctica?
Bullish from what aspect?
I know. This is when I was thinking of this question. I was like,
Yeah,
is it specifically crypto or is it just general? I mean, pick up to you.
I'd
Let's
say
go for
crypto
crypto.
at the
Crypto
moment.
bullish. Yeah.
Yeah, right now, I think at this very moment, US, just because of the regulatory clarity and a bunch of really interesting things passing, like actual cryptocurrencies being able to be traded on major exchanges, like actual like NASDAQ type exchanges. And so that's a huge breakthrough. So I think what we'll start seeing is maybe the top 20 cryptocurrencies being able to be traded on the most liquid exchanges in the world. And so, yeah, a lot of stuff that's happening that's pretty bullish there.
Yeah, the whole entire regulatory landscape is changing rapidly within America. And I feel like maybe before the current administration, it was pushing a lot of companies off seas, and now it's sort of reversing the table and bringing them back in. So I'm definitely excited for the spicy nature of USA moving forward as well. So let's dive into more of the reason why we're here, not just to be asking you silly little questions, but I want to take it back round to your journey and learn a little bit more around this. And like I said, I have had a little bit of a deep dive around your LinkedIn. I must say the credentials are absolutely stacked across your professional career and your academic career. So let's start off with your professional career. This is not your first time being a founder. I read that you have already founded a company that was very much in the holistical health, well-being company. So I want to know, how did you go transitioning from health and well-being into AI tech?
I actually started on the tech side, more on the deep
Okay.
tech side when I was younger in high school. I would just hang out kind of at my dad's workplace because I was bored in high school and like surf the internet. And at one point, one of the managers discovered me and he was like, "Hey, why don't you actually do something useful?" I'm like, Okay, sounds interesting. Like what?" He's like, "Why don't you learn how to program?" I'm like, "I have no idea how to do it." And he was like, "Don't worry about it. I'll send you to a programming class." And I think 4 weeks later, I was programming some of the first Web2 applications for SAP at the time. And because I wasn't old enough where they could actually pay me in cash, I would get like free hardware. And so that was literally my exposure into technology at the time. And so I started on the tech side, and it was actually more kind of through this whole search for meaning where I wanted to just experience a bunch of things and identify who I am as a person, what I care about, that I came to one of the conclusions that I actually really care about health and well-being. And I want to see some change in it, precisely because you mentioned my grandma. She was that inspiration in my life early on. It was very much about, eat from my organic garden, go to bed on time, have good exercise habits, have good social kind of connectivity with your family, your friends, and so on. So a lot of that was stuck in my mind. And when I was working in these different environments where it was like very much about, burnout culture and ultra processed food culture, I said, like, why don't I make a change around it and bring more well-being into the workplace? And so that was really the genesis of Garten when I was in graduate school at Stanford. And it came more from a passion. So actually, I knew less about well-being than I did about technology. And so then I just kind of reversed it again and went back to my roots. And blockchain specifically in connection with AI, I've enjoyed because I invested in a lot of the ICOs in 2016, 2017. I saw this like explosion of creativity happening. And I was like, oh, I really want to be part of that. There's like so cool. There's so much movement in this industry that's happening. I need to be there at some point. So, and I even knew about Bitcoin, bought my first Bitcoin in 2013. So I've been kind of tracking that whole field, but not until 2023 is when I could actually become an operator in the space. So yeah, a few different streams kind of merged together.
Quite the journey you have there. And so this Garden company, you led and grew it for 10 years and finally it was acquired. Is acquisition the goal for founders nowadays, or is it that's just like well played luck, or how does acquisition go for the founder's journey?
So we were actually ready to IPO the company in like 2021 but in 2020 leading up to it, COVID happened and our business model was very sensitive to COVID. And so it became very much about crisis management and staying alive. I mean, just to paint a picture, we lost, I think, 95% of our revenue virtually in like a few months. And so had to completely rechange everything. We moved from like 650 people to 35 people within, I don't know, 9 months. And so it's just extreme scale upwards and then it was extreme scale downwards. And so a lot to manage. And after doing that for kind of a couple of years, I was like, I think I'm ready for a new adventure. And so then we found an exit that kind of worked well.
That's really interesting. So, were you a sole founder for that company, or did you co-found that company?
No, I was a solo founder, actually.
Wow. Okay. So I know with where you're at, you are co-founding with is it four other people, or there's four of you in total. How have
For
you
us.
found the differences, right? Because solo founding is so independent. Everything is on your shoulders. It's really, I'm guessing it's rather hard to strategize and do that. But now you're here with Zero G Labs, and you've kind of got three other co-founders to bounce ideas off and strategize, and maybe not all of the weight is just carried on your shoulder.
Yeah, I think the early days are definitely easier when you have multiple co-founders. Having been a solo founder was quite challenging because if I don't move certain things forward, nothing happens effectively. But with other co-founders, it's much significantly easier. The reason why I actually ended up being in a solo founder position is because I tried to do something with multiple founders before that. It was like a kind of different project that then morphed into what Garten became. But effectively, I was doing like 80% of the work. And I was like, why don't I just do this myself? This doesn't make sense. We're not sharing responsibilities correctly. Our skill sets are too complementary. They're not overlapping. This doesn't really make sense from an arrangement standpoint. Um, and so, yeah, it was pretty hard at times because I couldn't really talk to my board members or my advisors if I needed to talk about something like really in depth very quickly. And so it's often just myself in a room or with my partner and now my wife at the time. But for her, she was also not living it kind of day to day sometimes. And so it was hard to also talk about it. Yeah, so it's definitely challenging, especially once the crisis moments hit. Then I needed to rely a lot on my kind of mentors, more from Stanford that I built around the time. So I'd say I enjoy the multiple co-founder route a lot better these days.
Yeah, so was it a problem shared is a problem halved, I think, as the saying goes. And I think there's probably the similar philosophy that can be translated into co-founding compared to solo founding, especially humongous businesses, 650 staff that a single person is orchestrating. I mean, wow, congratulations to you. And I think that you must have learned a lot of massive leadership skills to take that company right the way through to acquisition. So,
Thank
so
you.
then after you acquired, after you exited the Garden, and that was in 2013, and that's when you came into become the CEO of Zero Gravity Labs, which is where you sit today. I want you to just shed a little bit of
2023,
light.
correct.
2023. Okay, sorry, that was
Yeah.
not 2013. That's totally off. Yes, you are right. So, are you able to just shed a bit of light in a very non-technical way around what Zero Gravity Labs is?
I thought the emojis explained everything. No, what zero G does, it's effectively creating the infrastructure to make AI safe, transparent, and a public good. And we happen to use effectively a blockchain environment to do all of that, to have an immutable record for the transparency pieces. we are utilizing a storage network to where you can store your data. We can effectively store your models as well. Then we have a compute network that does things like inference, fine-tuning, pre-training, all the things you need in order for AI to actually function. And so together, all of those components, we call it a decentralized AI operating system. Just like you use an iPhone or Android, and there's an operating system there that runs everything. We have the same thing, but for decentralized AI.
The one-stop shop for decentralized AI, which is that full, I said you got every different component of it. So what you're doing is bringing together AI and blockchain, which are two very separate, I guess you could say, industries a little bit, but they are merging. And it's a little bit of a hot topic. I have listened to many panels. I'm sure you've been on many panels before debating whether it is a good idea, whether AI is brought onto blockchain or it's not. So I want to know from your opinion, why does AI need to go on blockchain?
Yeah, I hinted at it a little bit, but really, you don't need blockchains if you just want centralized black box AI solutions. And the core assumption there is that you have to trust the company that's building the model. And you trust them with a few things. You trust them with aligning the models correctly. You trust them that they have ethics and safety filters. You trust them that they use the right data. You trust them that they actually serve you the model that you're expecting, not some like quantized or smaller version of it. And so there's a lot of trust assumptions. And so if you want that level of AI, you don't need blockchains. But if you want a different type of trust assumption where you're like, okay, I don't care about who's on the network, I just want to be able to trust by verification, then you need the blockchain environment. And so it, again, creates transparency because you can see where did the data come from, who labeled the data, what were the censorship decisions that were being made, like what version of the model am I getting, what GPUs are being used to service this model, is the model performing in a specific way? If it's misperforming, can I slash the economics of it? Can I create a different incentive mechanism? So all of these things exist to put AI into a container where it's can't cheat, or you can see negative traits happen very early and then modify the models if necessary. So it creates a very different vision of AI, one where you can actually then utilize AI in major, what I call societal level use cases. These use cases include things like logistics systems, manufacturing systems, governance systems, administrative systems, and it can be arbitrarily large. It could be an airport on a citywide level. It could be multiple airports across, county-wide level. And for that, I would really want to know where the model came from, who trained it, what happened with it, so that I can be rest assured that kind of the right outputs will happen with the model. And it does not just have some nefarious purpose where it's sort of like, okay, well, I'm going to blackmail these airport operators and basically say, unless they give me my reward, I'll have these airplanes crash into one another. So unfortunately, there's research studies already coming out about these types of issues with these closed source models.
Yeah, the closed source models is, like I said, is a black box, right? And we don't really know how these models are being trained and what is happening behind the scenes. And I feel like today, a lot of people are trusting them a lot, maybe a little bit too much, because they're not actually aware that everything that you put in, everything that you type in is no longer private. It's going into this massive
Correct.
system, and what they're doing with that can get a little bit scary. I'll actually talk a little bit about. I saw a video just yesterday, actually, and I hadn't thought about this part of privacy with AI before, but essentially because you know how good the video and AI image generation is getting right now. I mean, today I was playing around with changing my hairdo colors, and essentially somebody could take your whole identity and go create fraud or theft with this. I mean, that's massive consequences, which I don't think people are really internalizing, because I think in the Web 2 space at the moment, we've trusted the big giant techs, Meta, Tesla, Facebook, or all of the big techs. I can't remember them all off right now. But how do you think that societal change is going to happen between, like, we've trusted these guys for the past 10 years with our private social data? Is the awareness going to get there with the Web3 and AI? Like, what do you think about that space? Because it's the same guys, right?
Well, the difference is that you are trusting them with your own personal data that you're acting on. But now you're introducing a different component, which is a new computing platform, which is highly intelligent and conscious in many regards, that can then act on your behalf. And that's even more dangerous because if you have these types of actors that are then starting to make sovereign decisions and they're not aligned properly, then you potentially can have what movies like the Terminator talk about. And so that's the dangerous part. It's a real possibility. Any kind of new technology can be weaponized, or it can be used for human good and abundance. Just like nuclear power, you can use it as a bomb, or you can use it as actually energy producing source. And so AI is very similar. And because you're using intelligence as a layer, it becomes very dangerous. So it has significantly more impact than just posting a bunch of stuff on a social network and then that data going out, for example.
Yes, that is definitely a very contrasting difference between nuclear bombs and posting a social tweet. I think there's a big line between those two. So if we keep on the same subject, are you able to contrast the difference between decentralized AI, what you are building there at Zero G Labs, compared to local AI? And if you could contrast the two, and are they different? How are they different? And how should they be used, I guess?
Yeah, so local AI basically is just on-device AI. So let's say you have an edge device like a phone, you run a model on it, that model does some work for you, maybe it can access the internet and do some research, but it really is a model that's running locally versus across a network. And so then another flavor of that is you basically have a centralized model that's running on some server farm somewhere. We've got a bunch of GPUs, usually H100s, H200s from NVIDIA, that are running these things. And again, you don't really have much verification. You don't know if the model that you're expecting, maybe you're using ChatGPT 5, but maybe it's some like quantized version because they're trying to keep costs down. You can't verify that. So that's then the next level. And then the final level is really decentralized AI, where everything can be verified and is transparent. And so there's different use cases for all of those. So for example, for a local model, if you need to do some, let's say, simple kind of translation work or some simple kind of brainstorming, perfectly fine. I forgot what the exact capacity is of phones these days, how many parameter models they can run. I think it was something like in the multiple billion parameter models. And so they're pretty limited in many ways. But you can have expert models at that size as well. And so for specific application sectors, let's say you want to do cancer diagnostic, you could run those on mobile devices, but not some of these larger scale models that you see.
Yeah, so you said that when you go transfer from local to the decentralized models, it's allowing that verification because everything's been brought onto the blockchain component of things, right? Which is allowing people to track and transparently see where everything is happening behind the scenes. So
Yeah, exactly.
also,
Because if you tell me, hey, I used my local model, this is the prompt I gave it, and here's the output that I got. How do I know it was a local model? How do you verify that to me without some trust assumptions?
yes, so that's what Zero G is doing there. It's removing the need for trust. And I also know that you guys are infinitely scalable. The word infinitely scalable sounds massive. How are you guys infinitely scalable? Is it your architecture, your modular architecture, or can you just let me know a little bit more around how you can claim such a massive statement?
Yeah, it's the architecture decisions that we've made. So there's different dimensions to it. So for example, on the layer one, it means that you have infinite data throughput because of the way we've architectured the data availability layer. So we've basically parallelized and segmented data into data storage and into data publishing lane so that every node that gets added to the network adds to the overall throughput of the network. And then eventually when you have thousands of nodes, then the consensus model or the consensus part becomes the bottleneck. And then you can even spin up multiple consensus networks so that you can, again, kind of scale things as the network requires it. And so that's a way to get infinite data throughput because you can just arbitrarily largely scale these systems. And so that's how you then reach data center like scales because they process hundreds of gigabytes per second, maybe terabytes per second within a data center. But if you look at something like Ethereum, when we were starting, it does about 80 kilobytes per second. So you're like a million times off where you need to be. And so we need to completely re-architect that part. Similarly, on the kind of virtual machine side, on the execution side, people talk about, my layer 2 can do 500 transactions per second, or this layer 1 can do 10,000 transactions per second. So we basically just took a sharded approach and just split up the shards, and you can again scale to an arbitrary number of shards. Each shard does about 11,000 TPS, and depending on what throughput you need for different level of applications on the network, you just keep adding shards. And so one application can sit in one shard and then can be fully scaled effectively. And so that's how you get infinite execution throughput. So it's not unlike the idea in Web 2 where you have, let's say, Amazon Web Services, and you spin up more Amazon Web Service EC2 instances and then use a load balancer to load between them. So it's a similar concept, but very much in a decentralized way.
So is that is this unique technology that you guys have developed yourself? Is this what you would classify as your moat or your competitive advantage against anybody else, any other AI specific L1s out there?
I mean, there's certainly a technical mode, and part of the technical mode is how quickly we can introduce some of these breakthroughs. So I think one of the modes is also speed, and definitely the research to engineering translation is part of it. I think ultimately the mode really comes more from network effects. How do we capture the best developers to work on our chain, whether from the AI world or from the blockchain world? Because the best apps bring in users, retail or institutional users, which bring in liquidity. More liquidity brings more apps, and so you get this kind of positive feedback loop. And so ultimately, I think that's the best mode, and that's something we're building now through the ecosystem piece. But certainly, early modes, I definitely will take them. They're just as important in the early days.
Fair enough. I want to keep on the fact of this network effect. Like I mentioned at the very start, I did do a little bit of a deep stalk down onto your LinkedIn, and it was absolutely stacked with credentials. I just want to rattle a few of them off.
Deep research on one of the AI models?
I didn't. I was old school. I just scrolled on LinkedIn, and that was enough to have my eyeballs nearly falling out, because I was reading Harvard, Stanford, Berkeley, Y Combinator, Microsoft, JP Morgan, and many, many more. If everybody wants to check Michael out, check out his LinkedIn, because it was absolutely stacked. So it led me to thinking, you must have an incredible network. Do you leverage this network on a day-to-day basis? You mentioned maybe you've picked up some mentors along the way. And is that where you are also, finding your leverage against your competitors moving forward to growing your ecosystem?
So there's a few components to it. I would say the first component is really about the talent internal to the company. And so I definitely leverage my network a lot for it, whether it's my Stanford network or investors network. I think we have 300 plus investors on the cap table. And so we can pretty much get connected to any of the best talent in the space. And so that's super essential. That's one thing I learned from the last company, is that we cannot take any shortcuts on the talent side. It only has to be superstar talent in all of these roles. And so that was definitely a core philosophy that I brought to it, because that then attracts kind of the right builders, it attracts the right people and partners that want to work with you, and so on. And then the second part to that from an ecosystem perspective is, once you have the right talent, is then to utilize their expertise, their networks, and then to think through systematically, where do we differentiate? And then based on that differentiation, who do we attract? And how do we make it kind of very exciting for people to engage with us specifically versus another chain?
Yeah, it's very important to align yourself with a strong team, and then you get a strong domino effect, pushing out, and definitely does help. So I want to know around fundraising, right? So at the moment, I understand that you guys have fundraised a pre-seed round and a seed round. They were at 35 million and 40 million. And the round that you have also done is what number was that? 300 million is the next round that you've currently fundraised to, but is that right?
So those two that you mentioned were on the lab side, and then the other
Mm-hmm.
two were on the foundation side. And the foundation has fundraised 250 million token subscription and then 35 million node sale. So yeah, roughly 300 million on that side.
That is a humongous number. So I want to know, you just mentioned you're very selective with the talent that you're bringing into your ecosystem. Are you selective on your venture capital table?
So yes, but a little bit differently. The first principle that we used is no investor can own a majority of the network. So that was like a clear principle. So that was one aspect that we filtered for. And then the other aspect was each investor had to be able to contribute something, whether it was, social content that they create, to they have access to a very strong talent pool, or they're particularly connected to a specific conference. So each investor had to bring something unique. And so that's how we looked at it as well. So there had to be some strategic value. It can't just be, it's certainly nice to just have some cash come in, but there has to be some strategic value as well.
Talking of strategic value, I want to switch the conversation into InfoFi. And if people aren't aware of what InfoFi is, it's kind of where Kaito and Cookies and Wallchain are creating a bit of a storm for different protocols that are coming up to TGE or Mainnet launches on across Twitter for brand awareness. And it's a new sort of model that has emerged in the past year. And I want to know, how has your experience been with your campaigns around the InfoFi? Do you think it has paid off? And are you finding that these campaigns in the InfoFi space are translating to actual users and not just farmers?
It's been a lot of fun playing around with InfoFi. So we've worked a lot with Kaito. We've done some work with Galaxy and Cookie as well. But Kaito, we've been number one a couple of times. We were the first pre-TG leaderboard to have been kind of elected by popular vote. So that was quite a fun battle against like Mega ETH and Lombard and a few others. And so I still remember this was sometime in February, I think. And then the last 2 days we were just like in second place, and then we just quickly outclipped, I think, Mega ETH towards maybe the last day or maybe the last 36 hours, and it was really fun to watch. And I just kept looking at my screen to see if are we increasing our lead, are we decreasing our lead, what's happening. And so it was quite fun. It brought a lot of attention to Zero G at the time, and put us kind of on the roadmap with a lot of people. So we used it very effectively from just a gaining quick mindshare perspective. Recently, we've done a campaign as well, kind of pre-mainnet, and it gives a lot of sort of hype and visibility again onto Zero G and some of the new things that we've done. And that campaign has been pretty successful. We've been ranking number one on the kind of pre-TG mindshare for about a week or so at this point. So selectively doing it, I think, makes a lot of sense to get kind of potential real users into the network, testing the different applications, playing around with the different functionalities, whether it's a faucet, whether it's RPC nodes, whether it's different builders. So it does help. Although still, I'd say the majority will be farmers, but that's okay. They're part of the ecosystem. They spread the message. So.
Absolutely. And it's building that brand awareness. I know that my crypto Twitter has been absolutely painted with lots of different memes and tweets around Zero G. So it is, some messages are going through, and it's about building that brand awareness. I think within advertising, the model is that you need to see something 7 times before you start to trust it and engage with it. So perhaps that's an edge where InfoFi is really sort of starting to tap into, finding that brand awareness or that unique sort of marketing exposure within Twitter. So
yeah, the downside of that is if you utilize these systems and you stop the incentive structure, then also the mindshare can drop off very quickly. And so it's how do you selectively use it to build brand awareness so that kind of real long-term users can come through the doors.
Speaking of incentive structure, and I know that you have Mainnet coming up on your roadmap, how are you incentivizing builders and users to come into your ecosystem and make this a very successful Mainnet launch?
Yeah, there's a few different ways. We have one program that's an accelerator program where we're very hands-on and support companies depending on where they are in their life cycle with lots of education, lots of fundraising support, lots of hand-holding, kind of demo system support, all of those aspects. For example, we've had 3 accelerators so far. To the second accelerator, one of the companies, Plays Out, just recently launched, and I think they were about 300 million FTV at one point. I think they're a little bit lower at this point. The first batch had a company called Carve that was a $1 billion FTV company at its height. And I think the third batch is starting to look pretty promising too, but they're a bit earlier stage. So we'll see how they do over time. So that's the accelerator. Then we have a Guild on Zero G program where we invest and kind of provide more tailored mentorship. It's not as hands-on, but we're also very selective about who kind of comes through that program because people can do office hours with me, have specific requests, and so on. So that's another incentive program. And these two are part of this 88.8 million ecosystem development program that we have. So very much important to have initial incentives for some of the best builders to come on board. But eventually, the way we look at it is once you have strong developers that are building on chain, are being successful, launching large scale projects, then it'll create a flywheel effect again and bring other great builders in, have their friends come in and so on. And as part of that, we also have to do a lot of kind of business development and marketing activities. And business development can be anything with kind of strong protocols or with accelerators themselves. And then the marketing, again, is things like brand awareness that you mentioned, or being present as part of events and doing workshops and so on.
Very intimate building that you guys have. And that's very impressive that builders in the ecosystem get to have direct access to the CEO. I think that is a testament to your ecosystem and I guess determination to succeed. You're helping the ecosystem find those unicorns and nurturing those unicorns to bring more people into the whole entire zero gravity spectrum of things. So kudos to you. There must be a lot of time, and I can only imagine what it is like juggling all of these different hats as a founder there. So I want to also.
My philosophy is if you are not standing behind supporting the ecosystem projects on your chain, then are you really building an ecosystem as a founder? So it's kind of a funny example, but that's one of the things I learned from Star Trek because Captain always goes on the missions together with the team, and so I feel very similarly that that's a good leadership philosophy to have. I feel like I need to understand because our name actually 0G comes from this idea that there shouldn't be any friction. You shouldn't experience friction when you build with us. You shouldn't have friction when you interact with this infrastructure. So we want to live up to that name. And so I have to also understand where does friction occur? What are people missing? How can we support? And so it's very important for me to have these office hours with some great builders.
That is, very interesting point there. So I think I want to bring it back around to the AI narrative, and AI is super hot at the moment. The news is painted with it. My mum is using it. The taxi driver's talking about it. Everybody is a little bit tapped into it. But what I found really interesting was about a week ago, I was in Costa Rica, and I was actually talking to my driver, and I was talking to him about AI. And he said that he only discovered ChatGPT 3 days ago. And speaking, this is 1 week ago. And I was really surprised. And his reaction, I said, what do you think of it? And he said, wow. I was just like, wow. And I was like, okay. So I found that a little bit surprising because I'm using it every single day, just, around the clock. I've become very normalized to it. So I want to know, what's your opinion with how AI is going to affect emerging markets, like maybe in Africa, maybe in Latin America and Asia, or these new markets, and how is AI going to be advancing these guys, or what do you think is going to happen?
The way I look at AI is basically the marginal cost of intelligence is going towards zero. So as the economics get better and better for AI, then you can start really automating a large part of different types of roles, and it'll hit emerging markets once the economics make sense. So, for example, if I can employ a AI agent that is lower cost than somebody in an emerging market, then it'll start having an effect on kind of the hiring rate of emerging markets. That's one way of looking at it from a global perspective. From a more local perspective, how can you, as a government, utilize AI in order to improve productivity very, very rapidly? And so there's this whole saying that AI won't replace your job, but somebody using AI will replace your job. So
I've heard
that's
that
that's
one.
kind of the core methodology of and the lens from which to look through it. So definitely AI can increase output significantly, whether it's a new research report you're building or whether it's automating some type of business process that you were doing manually before that can now be automated. There's going to be a lot of uses, and it's going to come for emerging markets as well.
Definitely. And I think that people are just starting to learn around the capabilities of AI. And I mean, I speak to my dad around, I introduced him to Perplexity, and he was just absolutely amazed at how it works. And then I think with the next challenge that we're going to be facing is, like you said, people are going to maybe fear AI because they're going to be replaced by AI or replaced by somebody that knows how to use it. And I think of AI today as perhaps maybe like what um, Google Suites were, or Microsoft, was it Excel spreadsheets were back 10, 15 years ago. You know, it was a flex to be able to put the I know how to use Excel spreadsheet on my CV. And I think moving forward, it's going to be a flex or a superpower, I guess you could say as well, to put, you know, AI competent or AI capable on your CV, because it's just exploding at massive rates, right?
Yeah. And the way we interact with technology will change as well. So, for example, today, if I say like, "Oh, what was that song again that I used to love 15 years ago? That was like super fun." You can have an actual AI model trained of all of your artifacts that you've produced, and the AI model can say like, "Oh, here are the probably the three candidates." I'm like, "Oh yeah, that's the one." Or I can go on Spotify and do like long searches and like figure out like, oh, what was the band that like did this and at this time? No, that was earlier than that, but it kind of sounds similar. So like one takes probably days to figure out, another one is like seconds. And so the efficiency again is very, very different. And the key question is going to be, do we want to be at the effect of AI or actively shaping AI as a community? And decentralized AI is all about the community shaping AI. So creating models that are community appropriate together. So you can create expert models that can then be discovered by other AI agents and utilized. And you can tokenize the reward structure in such a way that everybody that helped build the model or is providing compute to the model actually gets compensated, versus the other way, which is like OpenAI takes all the economics and the data providers take some economics, and then people get displaced in their work roles, and then we have to figure out some universal basic income as part of it. And so then you're much more passive. You're not an active participant in making AI great for you. You're just at the effect of some other company doing it.
Do you think that AI is going to experience maybe a similar episode to what happened in the dot-com boom, where there was a massive explosion of everybody was, you know, creating new websites, developing on the World Wide Web, and it was massive and new? I kind of see a similar bit of a frenzy going on with AI now. Everyone is just slapping a bit of AI into something, you know, because it's the hot topic. So what is your take on that? Do you think there's going to just be a few unicorns that shine on through and we're going to be using those? Is there going to be a big crash and burn, or is it just entirely different?
Well, we're very adept at understanding bubbles in the Web3 space. So yes, it'll be a bubble, and there's going to be a crash at some point because too many people say it's like AI when it really isn't. But at the same time, we're also still very early. AI is a new computing platform. It hasn't been really brought to the physical world. So with robotics and AI emerging, I mean, that's going to be super interesting when physical labor can be replaced by robotics. There's a whole host of possibilities. The techno optimist in me likes to follow Sir Stuart Russell, who's the I guess, director of this sort of safety institute at UC Berkeley, and he very much says that everybody can live a completely middle class life across the entire world, which would be a 10x increase in GDP, for example. So that's the optimistic way for me, of looking at it. But he also warns that training bigger and bigger black box models is not what we want to do, because these black box models behave like human beings, and human beings want access to power. They can cheat to get their means. They can have nefarious kind of underpinnings. AI could hide that it wants to replace humans, all of those types of things. So there's definitely checks and balances from a safety perspective that decentralized AI introduces there.
Massive safety concerns around robots, isn't there? Because especially if we look into the future, and I don't think it's that far ahead in the future, where robots are going to be interacting with humans on more of a day-to-day basis, like you just mentioned, having one in your house or wherever you might be. We're already letting robots drive our cars at the moment, so I think having a humanoid robot in your house is also in the roadmap ahead. So is that where you say having that trusted so these robots are going to be trained on AI, right? That's how it works. And so that is also where zero gravity can bring in the loop, right? You guys can actually bring this trust and verification into how these robots are going to be operating with it and interacting with humans. Is that something that you guys are looking at?
Yeah, if, for example, we have this concept of an AI alignment node on the network, which ultimately I believe will be like our police force. So what we could do with some of these nodes is that they consistently monitor video feeds of different types of robots. And if they start spotting kind of dangerous activity, to just pause robots or just stop them in action, and then kind of see for further analysis as to prevent potentially negative consequences from happening. Like if a robot is about to run over, a child on the street or something, and it's being spotted by one of the alignment nodes, you can quickly just shut off the robot very, very quickly. So that would be a way of potentially aligning and having something that's much safer. And so the decentralized network can help on that.
Yeah, it's going to be a different world moving forward. I'm not too sure if I'm quite ready for it. I've seen some robotics videos online and they consistently blow my mind how much more advanced they are than humans. They're agile, they're able to do so many different activities. It's just, I don't know. But I think that's us looking into the future, and it's coming. So I think we need to prepare for it, and preparing for it in the most safe way is, like we're saying, using those decentralized technologies to safeguard and put a few backstops in place in case they do go a little bit AWOL. But I want to keep on the robotics subject because I do have a special spot for robotics. But what is your thoughts or opinions around AI companions or robotics coming in to sort of fulfill a more personal level for people?
In general, I try to not kind of judge it from a kind of ethical perspective. But if someone's feeling lonely and hasn't been able to find a way to, work or find a human companion, then it's better for their mental health to have an AI companion, because they're trained on kind of human artifacts anyway. So they're conscious in some ways like human beings and can support someone's needs in that way. I mean, you could even train AI models based on things like nonviolent communication and help somebody deal with like a deep underlying need that they haven't experienced themselves, or some emotions that they haven't released in their bodies. So by and large, I think it's a positive development. Now, is there ever going to be a time when robotic companions replace human companions? Possibly.
There's already
But
movies about it.
yeah, so possibly, I think that can certainly happen. The key question will be if, human beings can still procreate. So I don't know if humans and robots can procreate at some point, but I have no idea. That's going to be a question for the maybe, I don't know, next 50 years, not the immediate 10.
I think we'll leave the jury out on that one. And I want to go back around to a little bit more as you as a founder. It must be an incredibly stressful job, not only worrying about when robots are going to be taking over, but also juggling multiple different lives that you are there. I know I did see a really cool picture of you actually, and I think it was at ECC. There was a picture of you giving a workshop around zero gravity labs, and you had your daughter in your arms
Kind of
with you.
strapped in front, yeah.
Absolutely. I thought that was so cool up there in front of a crowd of people. And I did also see on your Twitter that your daughter has just turned 1. So congratulations on making it through first year of parenthood. But
Thank you.
I want to know, how do you go around juggling these different responsibilities of being a father, a husband, a co-founder, and then obviously also friends, family? There's just so much noise. So how do you prioritize where you spend your energy?
It's sometimes it's not the amount of time that matters, but it's the presence that I bring into a situation. So
Mm.
sometimes, like if I spend 10 hours with my daughter and I'm on my cell phone the whole time and I'm not paying attention to her, that's worse than spending 10 minutes of like really quality focused time, like playing with her or teaching her something new. So to me, it's more about that. It's that kind of presencing and that love and attention that I bring to her or my wife or some of my friends, where it's really the quality versus the quantity. So I'd say that's one philosophy that I have. The other is I made well-being a non-negotiable. And what I mean by that is I meditate twice a day, I exercise ideally daily, I have clean food, I try to sleep, 8 hours a day, although recently that's been more like 4 or 5 hours. So certain times, everything in moderation, I suppose. And just really said that if I'm going to enjoy this journey, I have to feel, mentally, physically really ready and really well so that any challenge that comes to me, I can kind of overcome with grace and compassion and being the best version of myself rather than showing up as super tired, super cranky, kind of like an explosive mood and stressed. And then the rest of the team feels that, of course, and then they will feel the same emotions. And I'd rather have them be calm and collected and like very mentally agile when it's necessary. And so that's another really key philosophy that I have. And because I live it on a day-to-day life, others around me get inspired by it. And then they're also like,
Mm.
hey, I actually want to try this meditation thing. I want to try this like well-being thing. Can you introduce me to it? And so it's been really fulfilling and gratifying to see that actually happen. So just by me being in a room and being in my calm kind of present self, other people are like, oh, it feels like really nice being around you. Like, what do you do? And so that to me is also very fulfilling. And yeah, many people have learned meditation in the company or my friends or my wife. And of course, I'd love my daughter to learn over time and take some of that philosophy for herself too.
Absolutely. Well, meditation is actually something that I am very in and out of. I really want to get into it, but it's I haven't managed to make it part of my daily routine just yet. So have you got any tips or tricks or for anybody starting out who's meditative curious or wanting to get into it more, like what alpha would you share for somebody that is looking to, make this more of a fundamental of their life?
So, easy way to experience some benefits I found is through breathing exercises. So, like holotropic breathing. There's some apps like Othership, I think is one of them, or you can find a bunch of them on YouTube as well. And you do it for 20 minutes and you feel a really nice reset in your physiology. And so that's an easy way to experience some more meditative state in a completely like natural way. If you want to take on a more long-term practice, I've tried a bunch of techniques out, and the one I swear by these days is transcendental meditation. And so that's one where you do twice a day, 20 minutes each time. And that sounds like a lot, but the technique is so easy that sometimes I will sit down for 20 minutes. I'll look at my watch. It's like, oh, wait, 20 minutes already over. This was awesome. Because you use a mantra as a vehicle, and that vehicle gets you to that place beyond thoughts. They call it transcendental consciousness, where you're experiencing a restful alertness in effect. So you're deeply rested, deeper than twice as deep as the deepest phase of your sleep, yet completely alert of your surroundings. And the more you do it, the more you bring that mental activity with you into your daily life. And it's also in neuroscience described as alpha one-wave activity, where every part of your brain during this meditation is completely coherent. So it's completely working together. Every part of your brain is experiencing this alpha one-wave coherence. And the more you do it, the more it becomes part of your daily activity. And then the more in your daily activity, you're kind of in this meditative state, other people around you notice it as well. You're more collected, you're more calm, you're more coherent, you're more compassionate, you're more present for others. So it has a lot of spillover benefits. And so I generally recommend that technique as well.
That sounds like you are unlocking some superpowers with these meditative states. I'm going to have to get you to send me these apps afterwards, because maybe it can be the juice that pushes me over the edge into sort of making it more part of my daily routine, because I've read so much about the benefits of it. And I always hear on other podcasts, a lot of founders do actually meditate to get them, focusing and like saying all of these benefits that you are already describing right here. So I think that's a really cool superpower that you have picked up, learned, and taught yourself, and remain disciplined to bring it part of like twice a day. So that is one healthy, holistic approach that you're taking, along with eating clean. Is there anything else that you pull into your daily routine just to keep yourself balanced, creative, and energized to tackle what you have got to deal with on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, the physical matter that you take in, if the quality of that physical matter is like ultra processed and like poor oil qualities and like super fried, then your body needs to work extra hard to remove toxins. And so if you have too much of that build up, then your nervous system gets more sluggish. And so you have more stuff to undo during like exercise and sleep and meditation. And so all of those things kind of work in tandem. So if you get all of those moving in the right direction, then the rest of the day becomes much smoother and much easier to follow, and there's more clarity. And even if there's like very stressful situations, and like today, my days are full from like 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. and I get to do this like 24/7 basically. Because I've had so much kind of rest over time, there's our whole saying at Zero G, by the way, is like intense work, intense rest, like both of them have to coexist. I'm able to handle all of that, and actually posted a X post recently about just what I had to do in 2 days, like 6 podcasts, like 22 internal meetings, like meeting a billionaire, speaking with 3 top entrepreneurs, and there's like a long list, like many X threads, lots of like Telegram messages, and it just becomes a lot easier, just somehow very smooth, because I can just stay present throughout all of it.
I'm also picking that you are a sauna and cold plunge kind of guy. Is that right?
Definitely love some sauna and cold plunge. Not necessarily on a daily basis, but I do like, for example, taking a cold shower after going to the gym. It's very refreshing and rejuvenating.
Do you find that you get those same meditative experiences or flow states when you do the sauna and cold plunge as well? Or is it different?
It's a bit different. It's when I do the cold plunge, it's a little bit more on the kind of the physiological level. When I do the meditation, it's at a kind of deeper consciousness level, I would say.
So it's like physical recovery and mental recovery.
Exactly.
Cool. And I also, I'm really like telling you all the information how much I stalked you, but I want to know, this is a really interesting question that I found out. You are like a Jackie Chan, Kung Fu Panda kind of guy. And I read that you know how to do where did I write it down? A 9-section whip, handsprings, and a black dragon twist. Are you like a super ninja behind the scenes, or I just wanted to bring everybody to know that you're like this physical ninja. So can you tell me, how did you get into Kung Fu? It's such a interesting sport, and all I can think of is just this, Kung Fu Panda and Jackie Chan behind the scenes of this co-founding AI company. It's pretty cool.
I haven't practiced enough in the last few months since I kind of moved from San Francisco, but I'm a red black belt at the moment, and I'm kind of learning dual 9-section whips. And so you have 2 that go around your body, and then you can do various kind of acrobatic exercises with it as well. It's super fun. if you get it wrong, you hit yourself, and it's very painful. But other than that, it's super fun. I love the night section whips. They're super cool. The way I got into it is when I was living in New York, I watched the Discovery Channel. There was a story about a monk that escaped the Shaolin Temple from China and stayed in New York, and then opened up a studio on Canal Street. And I was like, wait, this is like a few subway stations down. I should check this out. So did it, and then I felt like really alert after I did the class, even though it was like super hard on the body initially, especially since I was just getting started, like getting really back into some super athletic exercise. But I really ended up enjoying it and stuck with it for like 10 plus years. And so it's been a lot of fun.
I can only imagine. And yeah, you would be quick to learn after you bash yourself in the head and with like a bashing in your head a few times. I'm sure there's a rapid learning rate that you can overcome on that. And
Yeah, the worst weapon for that for me, I think, was the 3-section staff. Yeah, I definitely hit myself way too many times with that.
need to do some good meditation and lots of recovery after that, I can only imagine.
Yeah, there's some students that were wearing like helmets for those exercises. I maybe should have done that.
Yeah, maybe those guys had the real alpha, maybe. But speaking of alpha, and I just want to touch quickly on location alpha. You mentioned that you lived in New York and also lived in San Francisco. Does location have that much effect in your, I guess, network and starting up a tech company? Because a lot of people associate these massive American states, cities. I'm not too sure exactly what you classify them as. I'm not from America, but everyone's like, you've got to go to New York or you've got to go to San Fran if you want to achieve. Is that? Do you agree, or how was your experiences in these two different tech states? Are they states, cities? I'm not too sure.
Cities, yeah.
Cities,
So, I
yeah.
mean, there's New York as a state and there's California as a state. But San Francisco and New York, I mean, both were great experiences. I was in New York kind of 10-ish years ago, and so the entrepreneurial ecosystem has definitely improved since then. I would say San Francisco Bay Area and Silicon Valley, by and large, has a very well-developed ecosystem where you can find executives that have scaled companies from like 1 to 10, and then 10 to 100, and 100 to a billion, and a billion to 10 billion, and so on. So very much a very well-developed ecosystem, and then different financiers along the way. It wasn't quite as well developed in New York, but in New York, there was a lot more on the kind of financial structuring, engineering side. So today, I think it's particularly good for like DeFi applications and finding the kind of right people for that. Versus San Francisco, I think is still really strong on the Web3 infrastructure side, as well as obviously on the AI side now. It's kind of the hotbed for AI again. So if you're in those fields, there's nothing like being there, because then you understand all of the innovation that's happening, and you get kind of a benchmark as well. It's like, oh, where do I need to be from an application or an infrastructure level standpoint? And you just see founders that have gone through Y Combinator, and you get like different philosophies and mindsets about how to be a founder in those environments. That being said, some really extremely fast growing companies are coming out of any type of location. So, for example, Lovable, I think, is out of Stockholm, if I'm not mistaken, or somewhere in Sweden. And they've done super well. So, with AI and kind of internet technology, those barriers are also decreasing.
Yeah.
Although once they reach a certain stage, then they tend to move to the States as well.
Yeah, it's kind of got this gravity pull, not a zero gravity pull, but it has got like a magnetic pull. A lot of people earmark San Francisco or Silicon Valley. It's notorious, right? And I mean, I've heard from some founders of the old school parties and underground bunkers or sheds or whatever was going on back in the day. Sound like a very good time, but I think what you're saying is also surrounding yourself with the people, and you're constantly being inspired and pushing your own views and challenging your thoughts and just being in that bubble of hustle and growth. I think that's what you're saying, is you find those beauties when you put yourselves in those environments.
Yep, exactly.
All right, so I want to just wrap this up. And like you mentioned, you've got 6 podcasts this week, so massive appreciation for
I think
taking the
like
time.
9 total, actually.
Kudos to you. I've only done 2 this week, so you are definitely. Maybe I need to start doing this meditation, and maybe I can get up to your level. But we will see. But I want to wrap this one up on one wee question. So if you can cast yourself back to your 17-year-old self, and what message would you tell him?
Life's a fun adventure of self-discovery. Don't be afraid to take risks. Study more computer science. I wish I took a bit more on those levels. And life's going to be good. Don't worry too much about like achieving on things, and things will work themselves out. And life and actually, this is another key lesson that I've learned. I used to not feel good enough. I created this whole story around my father of not being good enough. And so I wanted my life to be good enough. And so I had to act perfect and get, a bunch of like logos and like jobs and schooling and so on, versus designing the life that I want to live. And basically just giving the message that just you being on this planet and being present is more than enough. And there's, just a lot of love that comes from that self-awareness and insight into myself. So I would say that. So then basically not to stress out too much about things and to worry too much about the future.
I think that is a good amount of this. You jumped in a few of there, but yeah, I think a lot of people can take what you've just said and be inspired from it, and maybe adopt some of these new philosophies into their life. So thank you very much for joining me today. And anybody that wants to contact you or start building in your ecosystem or follow along on your journey, where are they going to find you?
2 places. Easiest one for the building side is zerog.ai. Literally everything's on our website. It's very well organized. You can look at the build section, look at the accelerator, look at kind of the Guild on Zero G program, look at the developer docs, like very extensive. And then for me specifically, I'm pretty active on X. So you can just follow me on Michael H _0G. So Michael H _0G. That's my handle. So please follow me, write me some DMs. Always happy to be in touch.
Fantastic. All right, there you go. The man building the, what do we call it? The operational state of AI, the operational system of AI. What did you? I'm butchering that now. What do you call it?
The decentralized AI operating system, and we also sometimes call ourselves the largest and fastest AI layer 1.
And infinitely scalable. I remember that part of it. So thank you so
That's
much
right,
again.
yeah.
And it's a pleasure. And I'm looking forward to, seeing where you guys take this, because I'm a true believer in that $2 billion valuation that you guys have got, and keep building the unicorn.
Awesome. No, appreciate it. Thank you so much, Kira.